I don't even know what those are. Senior in college, I don't know what you're talking about. I've seen him on TV. My first set with him was 5 sets of 13 in the snatch. If you put that workout out there today, you would be fired as a coach, because that's just wrong. But we did 5 sets of 13, but thank God the next week we went to 6 sets of 11. And then we went to 7 sets of 9, and then 8 sets of 7. And we worked all the way down, and I went from not being able to do 95 pounds on the snatch with some of the worst programming and design in the history of all programming, and I snatched 100 kilos for the first time, actually 102 kilos. I did 225 at the end of his 9-week block of blasphemy. Right? If you program that today, you will get fired. But you know what? A bad coach believed in is better than a good coach that doesn't have his team. He made me feel like I was going to be able to run through a brick wall, because to tell you what, the amount of hypertrophy from doing 13s in the snatch is massive. Massive. So he convinced me to stick around. 2 years later, that guy put me on the Olympic team. And in 1984, I'm at the Jesse Owens meet in Columbus, and I break the American record. And I need a moment to myself, and I walk away from my family and try to reflect on the fact that I just threw this 16-pound hammer farther than anyone in the United States ever has. That was my moment. And all of a sudden I hear this, like when you hear your favorite song come on the radio, you got to turn your jam up. I heard my favorite song, and it was Clang. Clang, clang, clang. Somebody's lifting. What are you doing? I walked in underneath Ohio State Stadium. 5 of the biggest guys, 1984, 5 of the biggest guys I've ever seen in my life. So I stood in the doorway and I watched these guys, and then one of them looked over at me, and I was 6'4", 274 pounds, and pretty trappy, pretty squatty, pretty quaddy, and gives the bro look, and I give him back the bro look, and this one guy comes over, and he seems to be the leader of this tribe. So he comes over and he's like, you him? I go, who? The hammer guy. Just broke the American record. I saw it. You him? Yeah, that's me. Louis Simmons. Nice to meet you. He wasn't Louis Simmons to you guys. This was 1984 Louis Simmons, prior to anyone that knew about Westside. It was just a bunch of guys lifted, and Louis was the leader. So that guy said, you want to get better? Come see me. So I went down and I talked with him and I learned from him. And then in 1991, I had one of the worst years I'd ever had in track and field, and I was just smashed. I'm like, oh, I don't know enough. I keep throwing so far in March and April, and I never throw far in June and July when it counts. And my buddy, who used to be my training partner, called me. He goes, hey, I met a guy. I'm doing bobsled now for New Zealand. I met a guy. He's coached 40 Olympic medals. Do you want to meet him? He wants to work with you. And I go, hell yeah, I want to meet him. What do I got to do? He's just got to drive to Montreal. Okay, done. Drove to Montreal. The part he didn't tell me is that 40 Olympic medals were all in winter sports. None of them were in track and field, and especially not with throwing. And so I go up and meet this guy. Make a long story short, it was Charles Poliquin. All 5'6" of him, 20-inch jacks. One of the crudest sense of humors, and you thought Ryan and Jance were. No, this guy took the cake. He belittled me in front of 105-pound figure skaters by telling me to my face that I was one of the strongest athletes I've ever worked with. This is amazing. You are one of the weakest athletes I have ever seen, and these 105-pound figure skaters will prove it. They made me put 100 kilos on my back and do a 5-0-5 back squat. 5 seconds eccentric, no pause on the bottom, 5 seconds to come up. Well, I've been my entire life, dynamic squatter. So by the second rep, my legs were shaking sideways because I'd never done a 10-second squat before. 5 seconds up, 5 seconds down. Literally, his 105-pound figure skater, world champion, got under the same load and did it for 5 reps. 100 kilos, 220 pounds, 505 for 5, and I could only get 2. Charles was my oracle. Charles Poliquin was the guy who changed my life and really set into motion what my philosophy on strength training is. I go to a meet at Miami of Ohio, and there's this big guy in the sector, and he's just like, hey, what's going on, coach? He was like, hey, what's up, man? Who are you? He goes, oh, I'm a strength coach at Miami of Ohio, but I don't really work with the throws that much, but I just want to come up and see what you guys are all about, and that was Brian Family. I go to a Poliquin seminar, and I meet Just Jance. I hurt my back, and Charles says, go see Matt Wenning. He's the best guy I've ever seen do guasha. I go, what's guasha? He goes, just go see him. And I had a red stripe up and down my back for 4 days of this guasha tool, but Matt fixed me. But that's more than who he was. He was somebody that I could learn from. And that was over 2 years ago, and the Wenning influence is deeply ingrained in the Ashland program. And then the final one probably was Derek Woodsky. Derek was somebody that I trained and I coached, and I taught him everything I knew. And then he went out and told everybody everything I knew, and then came back and told me everything I didn't. That's a smart man. Derek Woodsky is brilliant. So those are the people that influence my strength program, and you're going to see a little bit of all of them in here. So when I was thinking about the program that I wanted to talk about today, I knew I just had to pick something, or like, Matt could have gone 2 hours on the squat and it wouldn't have been long enough. Okay? So each of us kind of have to pick an area. I'm going to go with the sexy one. I'm going to go with what improved the bench in our first block of training, and then I'm going to show some exercises, 3 exercises for the core, 3 exercises for the lower body, and then 3 exercises for the upper body that you may or may not be doing. Okay? So when everybody gets a copy of that program, I'm just going to go over a couple things while you get that. One of the things that I wrote down for today is how important is periodization? Do you just train? Who doesn't? I'm not asking you to raise your hand, but give me a person's name that says periodization is bullshit. Louis said it. He doesn't believe in periodization. He believes the program stays linear like this 365 days, and then the following year it turns around and it comes back like this. Love that guy. Don't believe it. I don't believe it. I'm not telling you not to believe it. I don't believe it. So, I believe in periodization. In my program, we start out with a conditioning boot camp. That's our first block of training. Our biggest thing that we're trying to work on during boot camp is work capacity. Anybody talk about that today? Work capacity? Conditioning. We move that to what we call the base, building the bricks out. Some hypertrophy, a strength block, a power block, and then a snapshot. Your snapshot should be some form of competition. Jan's Foot, what's the #1 rule at 5 rings barbell? If you want to be a member, what do you have to do?
That's not a rule anymore, but it was that you have to compete in something.
You have to compete in something. I love that rule. As a track and field coach, after we do our boot camp, our base training, our hypertrophy, our first strength block, our power development block, we get a little snapshot by going to 2 meets, one in Tiffin, one at Kent State. There is no peaking, only a little bit of unloading, 25% reduction in volume, and I want to take a snapshot. So Brandon Freeman's one of my throwers. He goes out, he has 2 opportunities to show me what the fall did for him. It'll also show me what he did over the summer. How much did he train over the summer? How much is he retaining what we're doing? What kind of a competitor is he? What is he doing under load? This doesn't have to be the pinnacle of your season, but you need to do little mini comps to give yourself a snapshot of where you're at. All these big D1 schools in the country are like, no, we're not going to open up in December. It's way too early. And, you know, our kids, if they do badly, then I got to deal with their parents and all. Like, bullshit. Be willing to compete. Be willing to lay it on the line. Miles Pringle, one of the greatest athletes in Division II, was if anybody had a reason not to open up in December, was this guy. And he competed late into the summer, late into the USA team, late in the season, and then the week of the meet got a positive, what do you call the test? Not the pregnancy one. No. Mono. He had a positive mono test. And he told coach, he goes, well, maybe it's best that we didn't run that 500 to Kent. And he's like, but we're going to Youngstown State now because Kent State meet got canceled? Yeah. Anything about running the 4 miles? Okay. And he opens up, and now he's got one of the fastest times in the world. But I believe it's important to get some type of a snapshot. I believe it's a horrible idea to try to peak for it. Because that can only happen about 2, maximum 3 times a year. Okay? So, beyond this, what we're going to do is then we're going to go into our indoor, well, we have a winter break program. We lose our kids for like 3 weeks. And that goes back to a combination of B and C. The hypertrophy base and the strength is what's going on with my kids right now. We're in a beat down. Okay? We're back into basically stuff we were doing early in the fall. Then we're going to come back, we're going to have an indoor comp phase, we're going to have a conference, and then we're going to do some type of neural drive or peaking program or clusters for the NCAA meet, and then we get 1 week off and we're right into outdoors. You have to be able to periodize your training. So I wrote these down real quick. Top 10 things I do in the weight room. Number 1 is we teach Olympic lifts from the floor. The hang movement is used later for peaking when we want to unload the posterior chain a little bit. I can take anyone who has never done a power clean before, and I can have them do a power clean in under 5 minutes. A female with 30 kilos or a male with 50 kilos. I don't care what your strength level is, and it's very simple. First thing we do is we teach them the final position. So the first thing I do is I hand the athlete the bar and put it over their head. Okay, this is for you, Valeni. Okay? Stand there, Mark, with the bar over your head. You understand this is where we're going to finish? Yes. Okay, good. Snatch grip. Stand there. Shrug your shoulders. Can you do that? Yeah, I can shrug my shoulders. Put your traps on your ears. Okay, good. Leave the bar down there. Can you just athletically bend your knees, get into the position of RDLs or the deadlift? And from that position, all I want you to do is hold and jump. Now all I want you to do is hold down in the floor, wiggle yourself down. As you come up, I want you to shrug and jump. 9 out of 10 times that bar's over their head and go, wait, whoa, what just happened? You just did your first snatch. Okay, that's an old Poliquin trick that I've seen him do when we used to travel together. So I believe that Olympic lifts should be taught from the floor. I think you should progress range of motions with Olympic lift. I believe that you need to vary your grip on bench press because you'll get pattern overload. And I think that's real, that too many people only want to bench in their strong grip. They don't want to incline, and they certainly don't want to go narrower. So I think you got to watch for pattern overload. I try to get all of my kids to squat 1 inch below parallel if their hips allow it. What do I mean by 1 inch below parallel? To me, that is when the midpoint of my hip is 1 inch lower than my knee. That's my version. I don't care if it passes in a powerlifting meet. We're not Olympic lifters. We're not powerlifters. We're throwers. And my goal is to get that 1 inch below. Why? As an athlete, when I squatted at that level, I walked away going, oh, my hammies. Anytime that I get programmed for a squat higher than parallel, my quads blew up. But I never felt anything in my glutes, and I never felt anything in my hamstring. So I think there's range of motion that can help some of those things. So that's one of the things that I think is important. Use bands and chains and 1 1/4 movements and boards. That's just a simple statement. Use bands, chains, boards, and 1 1/4 movements. Where'd you first hear from 1 1/4 movements?
Well, I don't remember now.
Charles?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so he calls it myotatic squats.
Yeah.
Myotatic is gathering of energy. The way Charles explained it to me is that you take a tennis ball and you drop it. The higher height that you drop it means that the tennis ball has more stored or kinetic energy. And if you go down to a squat, come up a quarter, and then load that squat down a little bit lower, that kinetic energy is stored, and it's like that ball can poof right off the ground. Those are 1 1/4 movements. So when I say bands, boards, chains, 1 1/4 movements. Number 6, buy 1 new piece of equipment every year or 2. I know that's a really difficult one. If you listen to my podcast, you know that I've given back over $200,000 from my program, our summer camp that we have, and over $100,000 of that's gone into equipment. Either hammers, shots, discuses. We didn't have reverse hypers, I bought 2. We didn't have a winning belt squat, and Megan had a disc herniation in her neck, so I bought it. School didn't have the money to get it, I bought it. It's mine. The Legal bar, didn't have one, bought it. Standing back extension that Jantz produced, he never made a dime off of it, dumbass. Basically just came up with one of the greatest posterior chain and hamstring developers I have ever seen. And I tried it, and I go, give me 2. Okay? So I think if you're in a program, you need to start building up some things that you need to have. And one of those things for me was the belt squat. Use 3 to 4 week blocks of training. Charles always said that if you try to extend a block beyond 4 weeks, 2 things can happen. 3 things can happen, and 2 of them are bad. Number 1, the athlete gets better. Week 5. Number 2, the athlete gets worse for the first time, because it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. So we started with 5s and 6s, and then we got lower reps and higher sets, and athletes stronger, stronger, stronger. Week 5, crash. Or they get hurt. I've seen more injuries in week 5s of training programs, and sometimes even in week 4. And sometimes, or not sometimes, when we get to the outdoor season and we're being a little bit more intensive and we're traveling a lot more, we'll do 3-week blocks. Because I believe that by the 3rd week, everyone's getting stronger, and by the 4th week, I don't want anybody to go down, I don't want anybody to get hurt. So we use kind of an escalating intensity for those first 3 weeks. Training books are required in my program. You didn't write it down, it didn't happen. Simple. If you're a coach and we're in a program and I write this program and they're like, Coach, I don't understand this, I don't remember decline bench, rolling dumbbell triceps. Well, look back into the program, we did 6, 7 blocks ago we did those, and see what weight you started at. And they look through their book and it's got all these blank pages. The palest of ink is better than the fondest of memories. Shakespeare. Write it down. Every workout I've done since the age of 25 has been recorded. I have every rep, every set, every throw. And that was Al Shotman. Told me to write it down. My kids know that if they don't have their training book and practice at the weight room, they're not allowed to lift. So I'm a big believer in training books. The other thing is, a little bit of Cal Dietz, using concentric, eccentric, and isometric movements at the right time, and understand coupling agonist and antagonistic muscles. Okay, so there's the old Poliquin paradigm, A1, A2. So when I first started getting trained by Charles, I was so not on board with what he had written on paper, because I was going back and forth between 2 exercises. That everything was a push and a pull, an agonist and an antagonistic. What I realized is that my weight training sessions, which were normally 90 minutes to 2.5 hours, were now 60 minutes on the dot. Charles always said, what, Ryan, if you're in the weight room more than 60 minutes, you're fucking around. That was his philosophy. And it was based off the research of where the cortisol levels are, where the testosterone levels are raising, and that at 70, 80, 90 minutes, those levels are starting to go in opposite directions. So we try to keep every program that we do, and this is why you'll see, like, really, Ashland only does that many exercises for their upper body? But what you don't see is what happened here during the fall boot camp. So, I don't know if we'll get to it, but the last page that I gave you, that's the center mass bell circuit. These are center mass bells. Got a big old hole in the dumbbell. Okay? The reason that I like these as a throws coach is that we can take these outside and throw them, which means I can put both hands in here. And we can turn and we can throw them. We can do core exercises with them. We can, and I'm going to show you some more exercises that we did when we look at the videos. We didn't have center mass bells. Well, I didn't buy them. Luckily, one of my kids' dad said, how many do you need, Coach Logan? If we don't get at least 12 sets, I'd rather not even have one, because it won't do me any good. Okay. 2 weeks later, 12 sets of center mass bells show up at Ashland's facility. That helped. So in the fall, we do center mass bell circuit that I gave you. Okay, that's Monday. Tuesday, we do the Conard Fieldhouse circuit. That's the one thing that has not changed in 25 years. I don't care if we have 8 people or 18, or I've had as many as 27 throwers. We're going to get into groups of 2, and the foundational program of who Ashland is starts with our runners, our jumpers, and our throwers in the Conard Fieldhouse circuit. There is no exercise off limits. We've got surge pipes, we've got Bosu balls, we've got kids walking around doing band tear aparts, we're doing Russian twists, we're doing all these crazy exercises for 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. I thought I was the only one that was crazy until I met Andrew Durniak. Andrew Durniak took that whole Conard Fieldhouse philosophy to a whole different level when he started doing some of the things that he did. On Wednesday, that's always game day. I prefer sand volleyball. I prefer sand volleyball with medicine balls. Okay? Anybody know why you play sand volleyball with medicine balls? It's called Hoover ball. Anybody know why? President Hoover was not athletic enough to play volleyball, but he loved the game. And his trainer said, sir, what if we played with this 12-pound ball, and then you just had to throw it, and then the other person had to catch it. And then they had to throw it to somebody in the front line, and they had to throw it over. That's how it got its name of Hoover ball, was from President Hoover. We play Hoover ball all the time. You want to see craziness is when you get a guy that's strong, like a Danny Roberts from a year ago, and he throws an 18-pound medicine ball 40 feet into the air, and Megan's camped under it, and she takes it half to the face and half to the chest. Never dropped it, but that's a crazy game. So we do some kind of athletic game, anything that you can come up with. Thursday, we do conditioning and strongman. Any strongman, tire flips, truck pushes, any of that stuff. And then my favorite is on Friday, we do body chaos and mayhem. And that's where the first time Ashland throwers get to go in the weight room. And now I get to really play with some pretty cool exercises. So here's one of the ones we did last year, or this year for core. This is Lindsey Baker. You're going to recognize the reverse hyper. Just let it play a couple times. Okay, so that's 70 pounds. And she's taking that water pipe. That's a poor man's water pipe. $5 at Home Depot. Capped at both ends, got water in the middle, and she's taking that band off that reverse hyper and she's pulling it past. And then when it comes to the middle, she's locking her core in. And that band and that oscillation of that water pipe is trying to take her into all kinds of crazy positions. So we hadn't done these in a while, but we got up to where the guys were using about 200 pounds with this. Started off with 135 and they were smoked. Got up to about 200 and girls got up to about 80 to 100 pounds on these. So that's one of the exercises for core in the fall that we put in our body chaos circuit. Go ahead and pull up the banded pipe walks.
Another one of the big core stabilization exercises we did. This is a hand bell. We've got center mass bell. We've got a 35 and a 20, so we've got 55 pounds per side. If you don't have a band bell, you go a little $11. $105 at Home Depot. And it's 35 pounds. So both of them are going to go to press. And they're going to start walking. You can tell it's all shoulder stabilization. The bands are going crazy. And they're going to go down to the end of the 60-foot shot put line. And then they're going to both rotate. And this is really difficult. Sometimes we'll do 3 or 4 different rotations. Rotate, and then they're going to walk back around. Coming forward. Again, she's got 70 pounds, so that bells are.
So Lindsay's smiling because in the fall she actually got up to where she was using 50-pound center mass bells on each side with 20s hanging beside them. So 140 pounds plus the weight of the bar and would just walk like a boss, right? And then you got somebody like Jim Toth who's 6'4" with this skinny little waist and long femurs. And I actually cut the video off because he crashed there at the end. Okay, so you can see he was struggling to even press that thing up. But, you know, right now, we got the top 2 weight throwers ranked in the country right now, regardless of division, Alex Hill and Brent Fairbanks, and both of them say, Coach, when are we putting the walking bells back in? Nothing worked my core more than walking bells. And then the third one they weren't so happy about, because those are cool. Everybody likes doing those because that's a challenge. The one they didn't like was because Ryan Family asked me, Coach, are you guys doing any anti-rotational walking? And I'm like, what's that? He goes, oh, just give your guys a 76-pound kettlebell and have them walk a mile. What? A mile? My dudes don't want to walk a mile with nothing in their hand. So we started our guys with 35s. We started our girls with 20. At the end of our 4-week conditioning block, our girls were walking a mile with 50 pounds. So the whole idea is, you think about it, you pick up a 76-pound dumbbell, and you're going to be in this position, right? So you're not going to walk from there. So the first thing that you have to do is do this. You have to stabilize. And they would just walk till their grip gave out, and they pass it to their other hand. Why that exercise?
I mean, a million reasons, truthfully, but internal, external obliques on that side, which are critical for throwers. When those work better, your glute medius and glute max work better. It like works all the way up and down the chain. When the obliques work better, the shoulders work better, it ties everything together. And then also for GPP, we wanted them to be able to recover better from their sessions so that they could do more sets and come bounce back faster session to session.
So those are 3 of the core exercises. I didn't really show walking, but the banded pipe walks, the reverse hyper. Do you need a reverse hyper to do that? No, you just need some kind of a low swing arm so that the weight can move. It has to have some kind of weight. It just can't be a band. It has to be some kind of like a low jammer arm or even a low pulley for working that stabilization work in the middle. For legs, what we did was, we'll go to the goblet squat. I was so against this exercise. Don't play it yet. So I started hearing about Dan John talking about goblet squats, and I'm like, you know, come on. What is a 35 or a 50-pound dumbbell going to do for you when you're a 700-pound squatter like I was? I'm like, I don't want to hear anything about that. That's stupid. Those who can squat, those who don't do goblet squats. All it takes is having one person in your life who you respect tell you, are you guys doing goblet squats? They're amazing. Oh yeah, we do them all the time. Shit, Andrew, that was you, dude. Andrew sold me on goblet squats. He goes, why? One, it's easier to teach kids to push their knees out. Two, the range of motion from somebody who squats with their shoulders bent over and can only get to there. You give them a 35 or a 50-pound goblet squat and watch them put their ass on their heels. Increase those. So what we do, because we're trying to cue exactly like what Matt Lenning did, this is one of our All-American weight and hammer throwers, Senior Mackenzie Lee. So I caught her in the middle of our winter break squat program, which was 10 sets of 6 with a 3-0-1 tempo. We're doing Poliquin's German volume training for the fast twitch athlete. And I caught her in the middle. I go, hey, you've already got the hip circle on. So the hip circle is made by Mark Bell and Slingshot or How Much You Bench or whatever. So with that band between her knees, I'm telling her to push out against the band. So go ahead. She does not squat that deep normally. She squats right to parallel. You can see that band stretch out as she goes down. Andrew, thank you. Because I was just of the opinion that that was stupid. How could that possibly help? And now it is one of the backbones of our program. When we started doing these, my kids thought I was crazy because I told them, okay, today's leg day. They're like, oh, finally we get to squat. Yeah, not quite yet. We're doing 5 sets of 20. Thank you, Matt Lenning. We're doing 5 sets of 20 in the goblet squat. Guys, grab a 70. Girls, grab a 35. They're like, we do 100 reps of those. How are we supposed to do everything else? And you know what? The first workout, that's what it looked like. Because our work capacity at Ashland was shit. We started doing this. Now these guys, whether it's pressing movements, Matt, or whether it's goblet squats, they knock out their hundreds like this. And then they move right over to the next exercise. And they just go, man, that increase in volume, work capacity has just driven my strength through the roof. So, Andrew, thank you. Matt, thank you. All right, that's our first one. Second one from legs that you might not be doing, this comes from Malcolm Majeski. Malcolm, where are you? All right, explain it. Iso chain hold. We'll let it go through one time. All right, so this is Lindsay Baker.